Good afternoon. My name is Gabe Elias, and as chairman of the Speakers Program, I would like to welcome you to our third program of the fall quarter. Today we have with us Kathleen Cleaver, who has just recently returned from Algeria. Her topic for today will be Black Revolution in the United States and will be followed by a question and answer period. At this point, I would like to introduce Paul Williams, chairman of the BSU at UCLA, for a few short remarks, followed by Mrs. Cleaver's address.
Thank you. The Black Student Union feels in this situation that we have the opportunity to give you the pleasure of meeting a beautiful black woman. The Black Student Union in the past have made it a point to give a cross-section of political thought for black students on this campus to have a clear understanding of what our struggle means. I'm not going to go into no long speech. I'm just going to make it clear that this is the point of the Black Student Union here on this campus. Under the auspices of ASUCLA Speakers Program and with the support of the Black Student Union, I introduce Kathleen Cleaver.
All power to the people, brothers and sisters. Right on. You have to excuse us from being late. We were sort of blocked by LAPD white cars, I don't know, CCS, CCI, whichever one, and we got tied up trying to get down to the court for Geronimo's trial. And furthermore, we received information that the FBI, they didn't say who, but you know, these pigs, they might anticipate an incident, and if anything is provoked, they wanted to be able to call this special act so they could bring the LAPD down here in force. So, you know how they do these things. If everybody be cool, and then we know who the pigs are, because we know they're in here, see. They running this. In terms of the political situation, it's very clearly delineated in California, especially in terms of the concrete development of the fascist state, which is at its most advanced stage in California, and really very highly concentrated in an urban fashion in Los Angeles. In terms of the key issue, the central issue in the liberation struggle at this particular time, I'm sure you're all aware of it. It is the issue of the political prisoner. The vanguard force in the liberation struggle at this present time is the imprisoned population, and there are specific prison populations that are very key. We have the political prisoners, those of the revolutionary forces, the political activists, and those who are being imprisoned to prevent them from carrying out their political activities. A very classic example of this is the case of the LA-13, and in particular, Brother Geronimo, formerly Deputy Defense Minister of the Southern California chapter of the Black Panther Party, who are presently on trial now. I think all of you could recall the LA shootout in December, and that event, and what that is about, and that trial is presently going on really in obscurity. There is the issue of the military prisoner, and I don't mean just the soldier in the army who is a prisoner of the military machine, but the military prisoner, the political within the stockade of the military. And in the state of California, in the stockade of Fort Ord, held in maximum security at the present time, is a black brother from Watts, who's returned from Vietnam and being held on charges of fragging, killing some white officers, and the military is calling for the death penalty. Now, the thing that makes this case case, very classic, is the fact that never in the history of the United States have they ever called for the death penalty of a soldier in the U.S. Army. And they choose this black soldier to call the death penalty upon Brother Billy Dean Smith. At the same time, they let Lieutenant Calley parade around as some type of national hero. You see, he's a hero to the fascists. And the fascists are supporting him, and this is why he can carry on like this. Then we come to the key imprisoned population, the real base of this liberation struggle, and where you find the most profoundly dedicated forces in the liberation struggle in California in particular, and that is the convict population, the black convict population in these prisons. An example that brings that to your mind is the assassination of Brother George Jackson. But the trial of the other two, the Soledad brothers, is going on now in San Francisco. And you have to understand there is a definite interrelationship between the struggle of the revolutionaries, the forces within the prisons and without the prisons, within the military and without the military, within the political organizations and without the political organizations. And it all links up in the relationship of the underground. Because you see there's a cycle in this revolutionary momentum, in this phase of development of the struggle at the present time, whether you come from the prison or from the military or whether you come from the streets, you get the choice of going either to the military or to jail. Whether you come from the above ground and are forced underground or to jail, you see the same people moving around in this cycle of revolutionary action, especially in California. It's very clear in California. We're very concerned about issues here because I'm sure that you know it was in California that the Black Panther Party for self-defense was originated, and that the Black Panther Party got its birth and proceeded to develop the Afro-American liberation struggle. And it must be very clearly understood by everybody because apparently a great confusion has been caused by some so-called Panthers and some so-called revolutionaries during the past 2 years that the Black Panther Party had something to do with creating the Afro-American liberation struggle, when in fact it's the other way around. The Afro-American liberation struggle produced the Black Panther Party as a vehicle of its advancement, and as long as that instrument is advancing the struggle, then it's revolutionary and vanguard. And the minute it stops doing that, it's blocking, it's retarding. It is not a vanguard, it is not a relevant organization at the present time. The present structure, the present operation being carried out by these masqueraders, these phonies, these fakes, and they're very well known to the real Panthers, who are also well known to the real police, and who are also still being persecuted, tortured, arrested, killed, and shot throughout this country without your knowledge because of the complicity of the so-called Panther Party with these forces of oppression to make a compromise so that to get the heat off of them, you see? So this is why we say that the Black Panther Party as any type of revolutionary force is dead. The Black Panthers, however, are alive. The Black Panthers are in jails. The Black Panthers are running. The Black Panthers are starving. And we cannot sit here passively and look at these egomaniacs or whatever they want to call themselves go around and parade as if the Black Panther Party belongs to them. Because we know across this country there are hundreds, thousands of black people, poor people, white people, all kinds of people that dedicated something to building the Black Panther Party. The base of that party was the Afro-American black lumpen proletariat in the cities, in the ghettos throughout this country, in California, in the Midwest, in the East Coast, and now in the South. This is the Black Panther Party. Not this apparatus that parades around and passes out this disgusting newspaper, and it's nothing, it's just a haven for police informants at this point. It's absurd. And this is why it has become necessary for us to, in the international section, to move in this manner to clear up all these contradictions and confusions about the Black Panther Party that you are being subjected to and are using as an excuse not to do anything and not to relate. Because the case of Geronimo in Los Angeles, the case of Landon and Roy in New Haven, the case of the brothers in jail in New Orleans, all these brothers, these revolutionaries have been abandoned and are let at the mercy of the power structure. And these are the people that move the party, move the struggle, and these are the revolutionary forces that the pigs want. They don't care about that other stuff. We feel from the information that we've received that the present status of Huey P. Newton, I'm sure many of you are aware of this, or maybe many of you are not, is that of a Manchurian candidate. That the man was a revolutionary who was arrested and taken into the California Department of Corrections penal system. He was released in a surprise move at a particular time that was somewhat crucial. And when he was released, he was no longer the same person. And during this period of time, he had been subjected and programmed to many types of various drug treatments and distortions and psychotherapeutic arrangements in these brain-twisting, people-killing centers that they are run by the Department of Corrections of the state of California in Atascadero, in Vacaville, and CMC East. Now, those names might not mean anything to you, but you remember them because you might find yourself in those same institutions. And don't you believe it's not possible? This so-called split that many people have made much ado about is not a split. It is a development and is a transition so that the revolutionary forces that were organized at one time through the party, many of whom after a certain period in time went on to organize other organizations and participate in another level because they could not participate in revolutionary activity with this apparatus. This so-called split has been the coming to head of internal contradictions within the party since its foundation, but as the party grew and developed, resolving of contradictions that finally came out in an open break. And these contradictions that existed as a legitimate phase of the development of the liberation forces and the development of ideology through practice and theory also picked up on by the police forces, in particular the LAPD criminal conspiracy section and the FBI working out of LA, and manipulated upon and played upon through whisper campaigns, and he said this and he did that, and false information, and all of these little tricky tactics that they use to confuse people and distort them and make them paranoid and withdraw and all these types of things. So you have to look at the situation and look what has been done to the Black Panther Party primarily through three forces. You have the outright blatant police attacks. Then you have the police infiltration, and this infiltration is on many levels. Don't you think it's not? From Washington, D.C., the Pentagon, the FBI, the CCI, the IDA, all of them. I don't even know their names, and it's not relevant because it's all different levels and different aspects of pigs, of enemies, all right? That have brought about this split throughout the country. And there are many splits in the party that have carried on without your knowledge, and nobody jumped up and said anything about it until the international section made public the fact that they no longer went along with it, and this was the point at which the whole party had already left, and there wasn't really too much left but some young, innocent lackeys, terrorized, intimidated people, and some police informants, and the so-called Central Committee. But what has happened to the party, and the final outcome of this, has created a tremendous setback and a disappointment to the community of black people, to the community of revolutionaries, to the people that look to that for some type of leadership and direction, and to the international revolutionary movement, because whether or not you know it, the Black Panther Party was recognized as a vanguard force, not only in this country, but throughout the world, especially in Africa. And the destruction of the Black Panther Party by these combined forces of agents, of pigs, of jailings, of prisons, of brutalities, of murders, I'm sure you're fully aware of many of these murders, one in particular, but this has really destroyed the Black Panther Party, and they have been cooperated, this process has been collaborated upon by the counter-revolutionary and revisionists, and this is what it is. Leadership offered by the David Hilliard, June Hilliard clique. And we say this because this is exactly what it is. We are not calling names. And if we want to get into a question and answer session, we can go into details about this. We know you don't know these things. It was none of your business. You see, we hoped to be resolved these things internally, but it became impossible. But everybody needs to understand this stuff so they don't be lost in a maze of confusion, and they don't allow this and these contradictions and the way they affected things in Los Angeles are very, very pertinent to the fact that this brother Geronimo and these brothers who defended the central office during the shootout are up in the county jail and sitting in that courtroom, and nobody's outside there relating to it. You see, and this is exactly what they want. They think they got a clear-cut railroad, and this is their final coup in destroying the Black Panther Party, and the Black Panther Party is a name that's irrelevant, you see? That's why we say that's dead, forget about that, later for it. Destroying these revolutionary forces that were organized, coordinated, and moving in the LA area against these police forces, and they know it, and they don't tell you, because what's been going on across this country is a direct confrontation between the revolutionaries in the Panther Party, the military and political revolutionaries in the party, and the police departments. Whether you know it or not, that line of demarcation had been drawn, and that war had been initiated. Specifically, in relation to UCLA, I cannot come into this campus without a very profound sorrow. Because one of the original forces of this revolutionary action in the state of California, person who came out of the prisons of California, was active in the struggle, the liberation struggle going on within the prisons, continued to be active in the liberation struggle within the streets, continued to be active in using the Black Panther Party as a vehicle to advance this struggle, was murdered in cold blood on this very campus. And I'm talking about someone that you all have heard of, Bunchy! Alprentice Bunchy Carter. And that name might not mean nothing in this audience, but that means something outside, all right? And you better believe it. That was a black convict coming out here to deal with this. And the brother that was with him, Brother John Huggins, that was a black GI that had came out the military to deal with this. And when those two beautiful brothers were eliminated, by who? Who were they eliminated by, brothers and sisters? Who? Name them. No, the two brothers that he sent. Name them. Right on, Brother Steiner. Right here on this campus with guns. The blood was shed. And they went down here. That was a vicious attack on our forces of liberation, engineered by the LAPD and carried out by their black lackeys, the Steiner brothers, members of the US organization. And don't you think that organization isn't engaging in the same type of activities? After that murder, the leadership or the direction of the party fell on the shoulders of Brother Geronimo. Brother Geronimo came out of the U.S. military, out of the special forces, out of the Green Berets in Vietnam with Purple Hearts and medals. Out of that battlefield into this, and everything that he learned and everything that he suffered, he brought those skills back to the struggling people in this country, back to his brothers and sisters in the streets, back to the victims of fascism, LA style, and attempted to deal with it. And there's been a consistent attempt to move against him and eliminate him throughout the LA police forces. Many cases. The US organization was instrumental in that. The LA raid was a part of that. But they finally caught up with G through a little cotton-picking informant named Cotton, Melvin Smith. And you have to be aware of these things. Maybe you don't realize that, but this is what they're doing in this community around you, paying and buying little petty-minded lackeys to go out and destroy forces that are fighting for your liberation, going out and selling blood money, giving blood money to these who will allow fascism to get that much colder and leave you to deal with it. Now, can you deal with it? Or can you deal with helping somebody that is equipped to deal with it and trained to deal with it and willing to deal with it survive? And that's a decision that you have to make. And this contradiction in the Black Panther Party, the split in the Black Panther Party, it exploded over the arrest of Geronimo because the man was betrayed. He was set up, and he was arrested in Dallas, Texas, through the collaboration of the Hilliard and Newton and Elaine Brown and Maasai Hewitt clique, financed by tax money, you know, FBI, CIA, this and that. Don't think I'm just throwing this out, you see? He was arrested, held in Texas for 3 months, and there was no word on this. And if any of you read this rag sheet, I don't know how many people here read that shit. They purged the man as soon as he was extradited to California and told all kind of lies about him, etc. And behind this purge, they blocked any type of apparatus or support for this case, not only of Geronimo, but of the LA-13. Meanwhile, in between this arrest and the LA shootout, all the little lackeys had done everything they possibly could to dissipate the support of the people. And this is how they operate. They operate this everywhere, and this is why this whole so-called movement is in this present state, because they've terrorized, arrested, convicted, and done all these things to demoralize and have people isolated and confused. And this is just a tactic. It's a tactic called for by the Nixon administration, just as the assassination of Bunchy Carter and John Huggins on this campus was a tactic implemented by this Nixon administration. And this so-called Nixon administration is the same one that's having all these people look, oh, Nixon's going to China. Now, what do you think he's going to China for? To help you? Because he wants to end the war in Vietnam? You don't have to go all there to do it. Whatever he's going over there for, you can believe it is against your interests. What you have to realize, because you're in it too, all of you are in it, whether you like it or not, that there's a vice being created by a new alignment of great powers throughout the world. And you think you know who the great powers are. And the U.S. imperialists and their henchmen in Africa, in Asia, and Latin America are rearranging the manner in which they relate to each other, the manner in which they move, so that they will be able to better deal with the situation on the defensive. Because you have to realize that these pigs, these imperialist aggressors, these vicious, murderous, barbarous beasts that cause murder, torture, and suffering to the peoples of the world in Asia, in Africa, in Latin America, everywhere, and here, this is the headquarters. These people are making a strategic retreat. And they're withdrawing from Asia. And they've made certain arrangements to deal with Latin America. And they have a certain concentration that they're moving on next. And whether you know it or not, you need to, brothers and sisters, you need to. It is Africa. And you have to look at the situation and see where it's at. They want to maintain Israel as a state of their, how would you say, their colony in the northern half. And southern Africa in the southern part. And the South African racist governments, fascist governments of South Africa, southern Rhodesia, and Southwest Africa are making a coordination among themselves so that they will be able to deal economically and politically with the revolutionary forces, with the guerrilla forces that are moving in their territory. I don't know if you've heard about the bombings within Southern Africa. I don't know if you've heard about the guerrilla attacks in South Africa, and prime ministers say, well, we're not going to run across the border after these guerrillas. We're not going to do that. You know, but they're going to make arrangements with Southern Rhodesia so that they get them, you see? And there are liberation forces fighting on the ground in Africa and have been fighting an armed struggle for quite some time. And it should be clear, it is very clear, that it's these forces that are left out of these negotiations and these deals and these great power discussions, you see? It's these forces right here that have to take what they can get, and it's us over here that ain't nobody consulting us about nothing. Nothing, you see, not even the LAPD and what they're running down on this courthouse, what they're running down throughout this city, and you need to investigate that. You call yourselves students, well, study that, study reality, study what's outside of there, you see, study something that'll help people be able to deal with this situation instead of some trip, because you can trip on into a concentration camp, baby. We have to recognize that the time is now to intensify our efforts politically, militarily, socially. And at the present time, you see people retreating and de-emphasizing. They're going in the opposite direction. You're going in the direction that these pigs want you to go in. You're giving them a break while they get this other stuff in order, while Nixon goes to China and Agnew goes to Greece and Hirohito goes to Brussels and Houphouët-Boigny calls for let's dialogue with South Africa, and the Portuguese mercenaries and the CIA mercenaries in Angola plot on how to destroy the government of the People's Republic of the Congo, the only Marxist-Leninist state in black Africa, a population 1 million, with a People's Army, with a political revolutionary Marxist-Leninist party in power, in control of the government, with the president of the country and the president of the Central Committee of their party, one and the same person, with Mobutu. Now, if you know anything about black Africa and the political developments there, you know who Mobutu is, and you know who Lumumba is. And you know Mobutu was among that clique that murdered Lumumba. And I think you know how the Afro-American people feel about Patrice Lumumba. And I think you ought to know how the African people feel about Patrice Lumumba. And I think you need to know that there is a direct relationship between our struggles that's on the ground, that's against these forces of repression and aggression and murder that are racist, fascist, imperialist beasts. Now that might sound striking to you, but this is exactly what they are and exactly what they're doing in Vietnam, what they're doing in Korea, what they've done in the Congo, and what they're doing in Los Angeles. And you have to recognize that as a reality. Whether you recognize it or not, that's an objective condition. Whether you call them beasts now or you wait 20 years later and say, oh, children, they were some real beasts. I'm sorry I didn't deal with it then. You know, I mean, ain't nobody waiting on you. I'm just telling you, you see, that there is a very crucial time right now when a lot of realignments and reshiftings are being made. And people that are concerned about the revolutionary struggle in this country recognize that and are moving to do what they can to strengthen this shit, because we see, as a result of all the activities of the past 10 years, the riots and rebellions, the acts of people's warfare throughout the past 10 years, that our base is very strong. There's no need for this intimidation and this paranoia. Do you know why they run all this Pan-African madness through these campuses? So you sit up and trip on Pan-Africanism and won't think about what's going on in Cairo, Illinois. And do you know what's going on in Cairo, Illinois? What? For 2 years, the people in that community have been engaged in armed confrontation every night with the racist forces of the police department, the Ku Klux Klan, the American Nazi Party, the state troopers fighting with tanks and machine guns directed towards the black community. You have a division there, 3,000 black people against 3,000 white people, and they're fighting. And they have been fighting for 2 years. And ain't nobody giving up no details on how many's dead and wounded on either side. But it's not very many. And you have to recognize the situation in Wilmington, North Carolina, where the fascists have just said, well, we're ready for the Civil War. We accept your challenge, you know. Let's deal with it. Let's get it on. And you have to realize that the fascists are preparing this type of thing under your noses. They don't give you any information on what you're doing. You turn up one morning and look around and say, oh, you think you're going to the elections. You might be going off into a concentration camp. These communities inside the United States represent the model of the future. And we have to recognize in our cities, in our ghettos, in our things that we will be encircled, we will be surrounded. We have to develop tactics and practices that will enable us to survive this stage of the warfare. We have to be in a position to prepare ourselves now to endure the conditions of war that will be visited upon us. The reason I keep bringing up to you the conditions of the LA-13 and Brother Geronimo is because of the way it reveals the profound conspiracy over months and months and months hatched by all the agencies of the Los Angeles Police Department and the FBI in coordination with the headquarters in Washington and the Pentagon, etc., to destroy a handful of black Afro-American revolutionaries or fighters or lumpen proletariats beginning to develop an ideology in the heart of Los Angeles. They went through these changes to do that. You have to recognize what kind of power that represents and why they have to deal with all these changes just to deal with this small group and what it is that threatens them and how do they work and how do they operate and investigate that. You see? And get those details and bring them out and go and take them out into the black community where people care about this stuff. You understand me? Or do you care? Because the efforts on the part of these police were those to destroy the burgeoning leadership, the burgeoning direction, the burgeoning cadre of the liberation forces. These people have destroyed liberation forces, have destroyed struggles, have destroyed underground parties, revolutions around the world over the past 25 years. You take Indonesia, you can take Turkey, you can take anywhere and see the struggles that they have destroyed. And when you talk about Vietnam and Korea and these places, you talk about the struggles that have transcended all of their efforts to destroy them. So we can't believe that just because a revolution is on the ground, it's automatically going to be successful. That is not the case. And you're dealing with the masters of destruction. You have to face up to the fact that there's the inevitable culmination of all the attacks, the repressions, and the aggressive acts being perpetrated in the black community by the organized armed forces of repression, either the police, the courts, or whatever, have one culmination. That culmination is war. And that is what we are confronting. In terms of the confrontation represented by these brothers that are in the Old County Jail presently and receiving no support, no money, court-appointed attorneys, the whole thing is very lackadaisical and the pigs think they have it all sewed up. Have to realize that this is a position, it's a matter of principle, it's a reality, it's a situation in when those people who stood up for the validity of the principle of not only the right of Afro-American people, black people, oppressed people to wage armed struggle and self-defense, but who actually engaged in this, on this defense of this Gestapo raid in the black community on the Central Avenue headquarters of the Black Panther Party. They expose a very basic contradiction that's apparent not only in the operation they call the Black Panther Party, but throughout this so-called movement throughout this country, on the principle of whether armed struggle is or is not possible, valid, and whatever. And there are a lot of people that go around talking this talk. But when it comes down to it, they turn around and let you deal with it. 9 of you go to deal with it, and 1 of you end up with all the pigs, you see? And that's the situation that's been our fate for so long. that we got to recognize that and stop repeating ourselves and raise the things to a higher level, because that's where they're going. Around the country and around the world, the opposition, the enemy, the power structure is raising theirs to a higher level to be better prepared to deal with what they have foreseen in the period of the 60s and early 70s. I would ask you, and I know that maybe one or two, so I'm just asking you, if you will, if you are concerned, students, especially black students, to take it upon yourselves to go down to the Old County Courthouse, Old County Jail, and investigate that. Take it upon yourselves to listen to what's being said about the LAPD and investigate that. And take it upon yourselves to relate to the needs and the practical, present, how would you say, program that we can apply to forward the Afro-American liberation struggle. The one thing that we are interested in carrying out at this present time is the development of what we call the Revolutionary People's Communication Network, which is an apparatus which will link up the information facilities that are available to us, so that information such as this, so that the case of the LA-13 does not go down the drain for lack of information, so that the situation of the contradictions within the parties, or the situation, whether the split within the League of Black Workers and the International, the League of Black Workers and the International Black Workers Congress does not go ignored, so that the situation within the Republic of New Africa and their split does not go ignored, because a split is just a process of transformation and growth within a political apparatus, and the whole thing 20 years later will culminate in some apparatus that all of this is the groundwork for. You have to recognize that struggles develop in phases, on levels, and that you people here who are capable of doing certain things, you shouldn't be so slack. You see what I'm saying? That there's a lot that can be done that does not call that much from you, if it's nothing more than passing out a leaflet or helping put out a newspaper or getting on the radio or going down to a courtroom. But if you show some concern, you see, because what we're talking about and what we've always talked about is the power of the people, you see? The people have this power to defeat this. It has been demonstrated in Cairo, the power of the people united around their own desire to survive and defeat this attack, that they can survive. It has been demonstrated over 25 years in Vietnam, the tremendous, irresistible power of the people once properly organized, properly directed, educated, and continually elevated to a higher and higher level of struggle. And we have to recognize these dialectics and recognize these phases and identify these things and find out how we ourselves can apply these principles to the situation of the Afro-American people. And this is what the contradiction of the Black Panther Party came about in the first place, basically how we apply the principles, the principle of armed struggle, the principle of educating the masses, the principle of organizing the people, the principle of many other things. If you really want to know, you can check out the Red Book. They're all outlined there. And just because Nixon's going over there doesn't change it. It's still valid. You see what I'm saying? So basically, we're coming from the same point that all the members of the LA-13, the victims of this police conspiracy on a city, state, and national and international level, right here in your backyard, downtown LA, are victims of. And we're coming from the same principle that they came from that has proven to be successful, and that is dare to struggle, dare to win. All power to the people, brothers and sisters. Wait a minute, all right? To deal with these things, whether you want to deal with them, we have to deal with them, and we relate to some financial support to deal with these cases and to deal with these issues and to mobilize these things and to pay for gas, etc. And we're asking you to make a small contribution out of your pockets to us whose pockets are empty. And there'll be some sisters passing out some buckets around here.
Are you willing to answer any questions from the students?
Yes, and now if we have the time, we can take questions now. We want to take them from here? Yes, brother.
We have 2 mics, so we can just talk.
In the course of your speech, you mentioned international section, transition, and these words brought something to my mind. On January 25th, 1970, in the Black Panther paper, Huey P. Newton ran down a program of intercommunal solidarity. I'm wondering, what are your attitudes? What do you think about intercommunal solidarity?
Well, I think if you would...
Is it viable?
The word is not the issue, it's the practice, you see? And the practice of what Huey Newton has so-called defined as intercommunal is something that has been practiced by the revolutionary countries of the socialist nations for quite some time, but under another title called internationalism. And this is the principle upon which the international section had been based in the Black Panther Party. And when Huey, unbeknownst to us of all the other types of things he was engaged in and all the bags that he was coming out, came up with this intercommunalism, although we could see that the name itself was tended towards confusion because it was not aligned to any clear-cut principled ideology, we still adopted that name and went along with that, you see? And we were ridiculed and criticized and many other things, but we defended this still in the absence of much information of being able to explain intercommunalism, because intercommunalism is just words. You see, there is practice involved in international solidarity, in establishing relationships, in exchanging information, in all this type of thing. Internationalism, it has to be practically applied. So when you have someone advance a theory of intercommunalism and then expel the international section, I mean, where are they coming from? You dig it? So you have to recognize this is based on the theory of cooperation and the withering away of the state and all this type of stuff. But you have to recognize that Huey Newton is just full of words and ideas, and they run out and they can't be applied, and it's a phenomenon that's characteristic of people that are heavily drugged, which he has been for quite some time. Inside these penitentiaries, he's been subjected to all type of drug treatments, and he came out of the penitentiary, and it's a very shocking example of the heights and the depths and the insidious ways that these pigs were used to corrupt and destroy and distort and twist and trick people that are engaged in the Afro-American liberation struggle. You have to recognize the depths that they will go to deal with this, and then recognize that the power you have and move with that. Yeah. Be implemented. I mean, I say it's your practice that's important, not your name. Now, if your practice is correct and it's effective and you get results and you elevate things and you promote consciousness and you can come up with some concrete results that benefit not only the liberation force but the advancement of the struggle, then I'm not going to concern about your name. But you have to recognize who and what forces promoting intercommunalism, and look at all the other things they do that are designed not to advance but to retard, not to produce results but to dissipate energy, not to inform the people but to deceive the people. You see? And you need to check your sources and then check what's happening, and I would recommend that you examine that very carefully, because you don't know what else is behind that, you see?
You mentioned about retarding, about I'm a student. I'm an old timer. I'm not young anymore. I done had the lumps and bumps, you know. You mentioned about political prisoners. You failed to mention about the prisoner of the brainwashed, you know, like the Negro.
Yes, brother.
You know about campuses.
You're like Melvin Cotton Smith.
Let me finish, sister.
Yeah.
Now, there's a program going. Dig this, sister. There's a program going here, and I tried to wake these brothers and sisters up. They got a psych thing. You talking about psych or how brainwashing or drugs, you know? They got a psych program going here, run by, I hate to say, but I got Latin American blood in me. I'm Puerto Rican by, you know. All right, there's a Mexican running one part and there's a Caucasian running, but they're psych majors. I heard a psychiatrist get up on a stage and use the term minority. A psychiatrist in a university. You hear what I'm saying? All right, now, they're giving these kids psychic tests without telling them to consult their parents, you know? And it's annoying to me to see it, you know? They excuse me because I got past experience in that way, you know? And when I go to NOMO, the Afro-American thing, these Negroes are, mind you, are too busy worrying about their status or their positions in this fad chasing, you know, this education that, you know, that we think we got to have, you know. Would you make comment about as far as dreaming go? Would you make comment about McGee waking up Angela Davis? That kind of dreaming I'm talking about. You know, she was a fool until he kicked that lawyer and called her lawyer. You know, will you comment about that kind of druggery? You know, that they get here, that they're going to the black ghetto and go leave. Will you comment about that? Some of these jokers will leave it dreamers.
Yeah, I agree, brother, that a whole lot of people, especially the students that they send up into this brainwash center, which you have, I'm sure you know, is a direct integral part of this so-called military industrial complex. All the factories, all the military apparatuses, all the armed forces, California is strewn up and down with bases and defense industries. And so you find the university, a big, huge, wealthy university controlled by the state of California. What's this, UCLA, University of California in LA? The high level, this is for the bourgeoisie. You see, this is to train all their civil servants and create the apparatus. And now they have to recognize that this stuff that they got to deal with is going to implement fascism. So they got to, make sure that there's only a very narrow slot that they can deal with. That's why they had to kick Angela Davis out of here, because she was talking about Marxist-Leninism and dealing with some real issues and things. They don't want that here. You see? And this trick, you see, this is the main thing that's been hanging black people up ever since. It's the trick. The sight game. And especially what you mentioned about the minority. We are minority where? In whose kind? I never considered myself a minority. You dig? How do we get to be a minority? You got 2 eyes, 2 legs, 2 hands. Now what kind of minority is that? Yeah. All right? So you're an Afro-American, so what kind of minority is that? You dig it? How do they define a minority? In whose terms? If you look at the world situation, I mean, all y'all know who the minority is, and so do they, see? So we're not going to even get off into that. It's a numbers game, it's a skin game, and it's a trick. And it ain't the issue. I mean, there has never any type of armed force, any type of political force, any type of governing body. It's a minority. Who runs this country? A minority. But they don't tell them because you're a minority, you can't run the country. You see? The ruling class is the minority, and let's focus in on that.
I'd like to say one thing. You mentioned about the pig. Now, I am a lobbyist. I'm not a revolutionary. But if you call me, I'm the best goddamn pit fighter going.
Right on, brother. Well, don't worry. They be calling on you from every side. So you just better sure you done chose sides before you, because you were getting calls from everywhere, all right?
Say,
And, excuse me.
Kathleen, what I wanted to ask you is that from Eldridge to Bunchy and to Buster, we all were in San Quentin together.
Right on.
We all helped build a basis for coming out here fighting.
Right on, brother.
Now, all of us set up some type of a network where we could come out here and function. Now, I don't want to go all off into that because I'm leery of these cameras. But what I want to ask you is there any validity to Buster Clinton Smith about him getting ripped off in Algiers? I want to know.
I'll tell you this, brother, that information was put out in this country by Elaine Brown, right? And Elaine Brown is an FBI agent. And I don't know where she got this information. I ain't ever talked to her, and as far as I know, no, there is no validity to that. And
Is the brother breathing?
The brother left Algiers, was expelled from the international section along with all the other members sometime in February or January of 1970. And since that time, I have no information on any of them. And I don't, you know.
Okay, groovy, that's all I want to know.
Right on, brother.
If you are, over here, if you are, do you align yourself at all with parties such as the Rainbow Coalition, the Weathermen, Mayday Collective, and if in what way do you work with them, if you do?
Well, you have to understand where we're coming from is that at the present phase, what's missing is a communication network, because you have all these groups in isolation, working, scared, paranoid, don't want to talk to nobody, and it's very, very negative. And it's a phase of retardation, of withdrawal, and for many objective reasons. But where we're coming from is to say we link up on the information level, we link up on the propaganda, on the activities that can be dealt with through gathering information and putting out information, and the unit that you need to do this and all the facilities that people have, and we can work together along those lines, you see?
You do wish to work with them?
Pardon?
Do you wish to work with them?
Well, I mean, we wish to work with everybody that's wishing to work with us, with the exception of the police, you see?
Right.
And the Peralta
as far
streets. We wish to work with the people, and we wish the people to work with us. And the basic distinction in this country has not changed between the people and the pigs. Now, the line of demarcation and the situation of war in the state of California has first between the people and the pigs. You see, little initial shock tactics, and then between the Panthers and the pigs, and then they deal with that, and it's between the convicts and the pigs. And it's going to be between the military brothers and the pigs, and this is something that they don't want to relate to, because they have put them brothers over there to deal in the most devastating attack on human beings in the history of mankind in Vietnam. And they have all of these people, black, white, Mexican, Puerto Rican, Indian, Panamanian, and anything else they can draft off of them forces coming back here in the so-called withdrawal with that skill. And the U.S. government has not found any program for these people other than police department, you see. So the situation is very, very critical, and people who relate to this, people who recognize this, and the brothers themselves recognize this, they're coming up with a program. You see what I'm saying? But the people are in the majority. The pigs is uptight, and they got the people tricked and deprived of many material necessities. And this is why we have to start right here, and the people that have these certain material things, they just share them, you see? Because we all need them. And there's certain issues that are key and go to the heart of the problem. If you deal with that, you bring a whole lot of other things to light that can be dealt with on a broader and higher levels. If you understand me. Do you understand me? Am I making myself clear? All right, then.
Ms. Cleaver, I have two questions. Is the collection for sickle cell anemia by the Black Panthers going into
I
Huey
have told you
Newton's
the black,
pocket?
no.
Or is it?
The collection is for the defense of the LA-13.
Well, no, they were on campus a couple days ago.
I'm sure they are. They're probably still here.
Yeah, well, they were collecting specifically for sickle cell anemia research.
But there's all kind of people into this, you see? It's a very opportunistic thing, because there are people who are suffering from sickle cell anemia, and they have been for hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years. It's a very old disease. There are people in the United States and Africa and India and other areas that suffer from sickle cell anemia. Now, you have to recognize, why is it at this time there's a concerted effort to raise funds and to channel research into sickle cell anemia, when you look at the other side and they're doing all this underhanded chemical research in terms of what kind of chemicals will react on what type of ethnic groups, and where do you think they're getting in this research, and why they're so concerned with the internal cells and blood structure of the Afro-American people. Now you think about that. All right?
My
Mrs. Cleaver.
second question is what do you think of Senator McGovern's candidacy? Is he a honky? Is he a fascist?
Look,
is he going to do any good?
I'm not even relating to that. I don't know.
Mrs. Cleaver, does the fact that your husband has taken refuge in Algeria, a Muslim country, show his rapport and empathy for the homeless Palestinian refugees?
The Muslim countries showed their empathy for the homeless Palestinian refugees, and I think any valid revolutionary, Afro-American or otherwise, living in Algeria or otherwise, has to recognize the validity of the Palestinian liberation struggle. And we have shown this in many ways. We have participated in their conferences. We have made a position statement on that. If you'd like to have a copy of that, you can write to BP 118 Grand Post, Algiers, Algeria, and ask for a copy of that statement. Or you can get a copy of Right On that run it, but those copies are hard to come by. And you're welcome. And we are in solidarity with all the struggling people because they're fighting against the Zionist lackeys of the U.S. imperialists. And that might sound like rhetoric to you, but to them, it's God's truth and it's life or death.
Beautiful. Mrs. Cleaver. I attend a trial of the 13 once a week. One of my friends, Renee Moore, the coordinator of the breakfast program, is one of the 13. Peaches. Yeah. These people haven't got enough to eat. I'm conducting at the moment a groceries gathering for her. Her address is 922 East Adams, apartment number 3. For those of you who have 3 squares, would you please cut out 1 square and take it down to Peaches? Her family is hungry, and she's 5 months pregnant.
Excuse me, we have to make some clarification on that.
First of all, like you are relating to the LA 13. You know, this is what we're talking about. Now, what you got to remember, there was 18 people, you know, arrested in that raid. You did, and there's a clear line of demarcation around the other 5. The other 5 are not revolutionaries. The ones in jail is who we want you to deal with. Take that money down there and put it on their books. Get them some lawyers. Take your butt in that courtroom and tell that fascist-ass judge to turn them loose. The others is on the street.
Sister Cleaver.
Yes.
Yes, my name is Charles, and it seems like that everything is moving in a direction of power, you know. That's
right on.
That's the value.
Right on.
You know.
And look who ain't got it.
And it seems that the various organizations, like when I first started, it was the Muslims, you know, that I idoled. I went along with them. And then it became the Black Panthers, and now the Panthers are losing, you know, their influence. But it seems like each time it was that the power itself that it advocates
comes up in another form, right?
Has turned on the people themselves that use it. Whereas, in other words, the power that the Black Panthers have been advocating, you know, to take over the system itself,
right,
is now destroying the Black Panther Party.
Yeah, this is the whole phenomenon of revisionism and counter-revolutionaries and pig agents and reactions on cowardly people to repression that has been cooked up throughout this country to destroy the Black Panther Party. And what I'm trying to tell you is the Black Panther Party that you're talking about as dead and gone forever, and the representatives of that Black Panther Party in Los Angeles, if you care about that Black Panther Party, are up there in the county jail. You see?
Right.
So the Black Panther Party is being transformed into another form through the jails, through this warfare, into a whole nother level of the resistance. And as we understand, repression, breeds resistance, and resistance breeds repression. And you have to look at the transformation of the force, the principles, and the people that went up to make the Black Panther Party and see where they're at, and stop getting hung up on this pig plot to make you think that this stuff that they've got going, they call the Black Panther Party, which has been thoroughly and totally co-opted and is practically run by the police department. This is what I'm trying to get through your head, brother. When you talk about the Black Panther Party and refer to that, you're talking about one arm of this obscuring structure run by the police department, financed by the police department, and set out here to trick you.
Yeah, well, see.
And well, you don't want to believe it, but I'm telling you the truth.
Yeah, I'm going to bring out a fact. You know Earl Anthony?
Yeah, I know him.
The brother, he was a Black Panther.
Yeah, I know him very well. Where is he?
And he wrote a book. Where is he? I don't know.
I know where he is, too. He's up in San Francisco.
But anyway.
He didn't write some of them confusing articles on Pan-Africanism, you know?
No, he was in an incident with the Black Panthers a year or so, I don't know how long exactly, but it was with Bunchy. And the thing was that he was at the time, I believe he was an officer, and Bunchy, the time was under him. And
I think you might be talking about when he was a so-called Minister of Information. Bunchy has never been under him. He'd turn over in his grave if you heard him say that.
Well, anyway, it came out to an incident where Bunchy and four other guys held some type of a court, they called, and put him out. See what I'm saying? And the thing was, the issue was that, see, let me try and remember.
What's your question, brother?
No, he related it as being a situation where Bunchy wanted to move him out because he wanted a position where he could control. Now this is the impression that he gave in his book. Okay. Now the thing was that
hey, wait a minute. See, we're running out of time.
I don't
and
think
you
four
want to
people.
wait a minute. You want to get into a discussion? We can deal with that a little bit later. But I think if anybody has a serious question concerning information, we're gonna have to take that, and I think it has to be the last, right? Yeah, we're gonna have to deal with the last. Quick, we deal with that on the side, brother.
Okay, then, right on.
We are here, I think, talking about a black revolt. And all the black people, I think, are the same, no matter where they are, whether they are here on Africa. I come from Africa particularly. And I think you failed to mention during your speech one aspect of this, and this is the place of the black Muslims. Down where I come from, I have got my own gods in which I believe, the gods of my ancestors. And it sort of annoys me when I come over here to feel alienated, to feel that I can't take part in the black struggle simply because I'm not a Muslim. This is the impression I'm being given by the black Muslims. Would you like to comment on that?
Which black Muslims are you talking about, brother? Well, where are these Muslims that make you feel like you can't participate in
They
the
are here
struggle?
on the campus every day, passing down pamphlets and things like that.
Well, brother, you got to realize that Afro-American is one of the most ideologically divided communities on the face of the earth, and you find everything. But don't let that bother you, brother. The people in general all trying to get it together, and you just been hung up with the wrong people, Come on over here with us. You can help us. I think that's all. All part of the people.